Hi Year 12, so welcome to our video for remembering key quotes from Streetcar, and first up we have Stanley Kowalski and his first action, which is
meat.
Next we have Blanche Dubois, whose delicate beauty must avoid strong light. Next, Blanche talks about Belle Reve, and she tells Stella that the Grim Reaper had set his tent up on our doorstep. In contrast to Blanche, Stanley is described as a richly feathered male bird. Probably not a hummingbird like this, maybe something more like a peacock, really showing off its masculinity.
Centimeters. Okay.
We are told that Stanley measures women up at a glance. Here we can see we're measuring her up at a glance. And Stanley finds Blanche's costume jewellery and her fake furs. He compares them to the treasure chest of a pirate. Blanche, inside her trunk, has poems from Alan Gray, and she talks about them as poems a dead boy wrote. They're the letters. So in a sense she's kind of holding on, clinging on to the past. Hold them back in. That's it. So Blanche talks to Stanley and the fact that Belle Reve and the estates will now be in his big, capable hands. So a sort of sign of his masculinity, but also a sign that the future belongs to Stanley. The estate will be in his big, capable hands. Blanche says she cannot stand a naked light. It's what she tells Mitch. So again, we get this idea that Blanche lives in the shadows, maybe in an alternative reality almost, a bit of a fantasy. She cannot stand a naked light. So in the middle of the poker night, when Stanley slaps Stella, she calls him a drunk animal thing. And we get the idea of his quality, his id-like quality there, in contrast to Blanche and her superego, her ideals. Okay, here we have Mitch as the dancing bear. So we get the idea of his kind of lack of sophistication and the indication that he's never really going to be Blanche's Rosencavalier. She's never going to be Blanche's idea of a knight in shining armour. After the altercation between Stanley and Stella, we really know that Stella and Stanley are inseparable when Stella is awake the next morning reading coloured comics. So the idea here that she's sort of taken sides, she's rejected the literature and the sophistication of Blanche's world and the world of Belle Reve, and she's firmly siding with Stanley and this unsophisticated future of coloured comics. Go! So Stella recounts how on their wedding night Stanley smashed the light bulbs with the heel of her slipper. So we get an idea of his violence, but also his passion. Shep Huntley is sort of the embodiment of Blanche's fantasy world, and she is prone to exaggeration, so she talks about him having a Cadillac a block long. So here we are, here's our Cadillac of the Paw Patroller.
It's my brother Archie's.
Yeah, and it's a block long. If you remember, Stella says that must be awkward in traffic. So we've got this perfect moment where we see Blanche's exaggeration and kind of fantasy world colliding with Stella's practicality. Okay, Blanche uses euphemisms to describe her affairs. So she talks about moving from one leaky roof to another leaky roof. And clearly what she's talking about is from one affair to the next, from one unreliable man to the next. But typically, she's unable to refer to them in kind of bald terms. She refers to them in metaphors and euphemisms. When Blanche meets Mitch after the after Stanley has blown her cover and explained what she's like, Mitch accuses her of lying, and she says that she wasn't lying. She just wants magic. So the quote is, "I'll tell you what I want, magic."
Can I do a magic trick?
Yeah.
There's nothing there. Okay? Nothing. And now, abracadabra. Wait, there'll be a rabbit. See?
I can't actually see the rabbit. As Blanche begins to break down, we see her in the final scene placing a rhinestone tiara on her head. So she's kind of retreating into this fantasy world, the world of Shep Huntley, the world of Belrev, and she's placing a rhinestone tiara on her head.